welcome back to our channel. I'm Danielle, your resident romantic.
And I'm Lindsay, the fantasy fan, and we are friends
till the book ends. And now, I would just like to say, I think this video is going to be in honor of me and my name tag on this channel, the Resident Romantic. In case you missed it, Valentine's Day happened just behind us on Sunday. Of course, we have to celebrate it and make a Valentine's Day themed video. I pushed for it very hard. You're welcome. Lindsay and I just chose about 5 each of some of our favorite romances of all times that we're going to talk about with you guys. Not much to it, so let's go do it. So the first one for me is the Arcana Chronicles by Presley Cole. I really love this series. You've read it as well, right?
Yeah.
We're both kind of waiting for this final book in the series to come out, as I'm sure
whenever it will.
Whenever it will. Evie and Jack are two 16-year-olds who dealt with high school, and then suddenly the apocalypse happened. They weren't really friends in high school, but somehow they seem to be the only two who survived this apocalypse. So they meet up, make an unlikely faux friend relationship, and they kind of have to deal with figuring out how to survive, how to move on with the apocalypse. And then you also find out that there might be a little something special about Evie, because it focuses...
Something a little supernatural.
Something a little supernatural, yes. Without giving too much away, because there's a whole series, basically, every time the apocalypse happens, every 100 years or something, only the tarot cards survive. And when I say the tarot cards, I mean people like Evie, where she is a real person, but she has the power of the Empress tarot card. And all of these people are scattered throughout, and somehow Jack actually survived. He's human. There's nothing special about him. And him and Evie try to survive the apocalypse while also encountering these other tarot cards, and from there ensues battles. The whole point of it is because there's supposed to be one overarching tarot card who wins at the end, and then who gets to live on while the others die. There's a lot more to it. This is just a very, very basic synopsis. If you've read it, you understand why it's so difficult to describe it right now. I don't want to give any spoilers for the rest of the series. There's a love triangle in here between Evie, Jack, and a possible nefarious character, which always makes it more fun, where you have the good versus the bad, and gosh, who should I choose? So this is fun. I just really love the romance. I think it was really well written for a teenage book. It was written very mature, and I just remember that I still have yet to choose who I want Evie to end up with.
And it's just such a unique concept. Like, I've never read something like this, like with the tarot cards. It makes it so interesting, and it's such a cool world. She did such a good job with this.
I know, I'm so excited. Now, if she could just get us the last book, we'd be okay.
Fantastic. So the first book that I want to chat about is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and this book is so good. It's so steamy. So essentially, we're following our character named Stella, and she is on the autism spectrum. And she is kind of this, like, high-powered executive within, I believe it's, like, actuarial sciences. So she's super smart, and she makes a lot of money, and she's really successful within her professional career, but her parents are not really concerned with that. They're kind of like, well, where's your man? So she feels like she's not living up to expectations, so she decides that in order to kind of figure out how to be intimate with people, because that's something that she struggles with, she's going to hire a male escort, and he is going to teach her the ins and outs of how to, like, be romantic and how to be intimate. And that male escort's name is Michael, and he is adorable. This book was so good because I feel like I love the rep in it, firstly, and then also it was just so cute while also being steamy at the same time.
Good.
Because you really fall in love with both of the characters, and you know, Helen Huang, this is a whole series, so it's like a set of companion novels. And the second one follows a character that's introduced in this one, and then the third one is coming out this year. So I can't wait for it. So if you've probably seen this somewhere. If you were thinking about picking it up, I highly recommend.
Next on my list is Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick.
A classic.
A very, very big classic. This is important for me because I think I read this series when I was really young, probably 14, 15, 16-ish. It was probably the first young adult romance, supernatural, paranormal book I read. I think it was the first book that really made me think about love, and I honestly want to attribute this series to the reason I'm a hopeless romantic that I am today. I think it all started with this one. This is exactly where it started. So, short synopsis, it is a series, so I don't want to give too much, but basically you have Nora, who's a normal teenage girl, and she runs into Patch. Patch is a guy who suddenly shows up in her science class, and something does not feel right about him. I'm not going to give too much away because you usually find out at the end of the book what he is. But based off of the cover, he is obviously not human. He is supernatural. There are some angelic qualities to him, but there's also more involved in that. And of course there's romance involved with this because so Patch actually comes to Earth not planning to fall in love with Nora. He has other plans, but the heart wants what the heart wants. So I just really love it. It's just such a classic for me.
Something that cracked me up about that book was the fact that so Nora's dad has died and her mom is like absent for most of this, so she just wanders around completely unsupervised, and I was like, I could never get away with any of the shit that she does.
I know. Do you ever realize that like most of the paranormal YA romance books have to deal with the teenager not having any parents around for some reason?
Because the parents would be like slapping him, be like, right, get away from Edward, he is a creep. Like,
shout out to Twilight.
So the next book that I want to chat through was my favorite book that I read last year in 2020, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, who has a second book coming out in May, and I've heard really great early things about it, so I'm so excited. But essentially, this is a queer romance between two boys. One of them is Alex, who is the son of the President of the United States, and the other boy is Henry, who happens to be, I believe, the Prince of Wales. So we have a across the pond relationship happening, and essentially these two like don't like each other. Alex thinks Henry is pretentious, and Henry thinks Alex is just like wild and weird. And there's an incident at a wedding. I won't say what because it's hilarious to read, but essentially there's like a fight between them at a wedding, and in order to kind of generate good PR and good press around them, they have to form like a friendship between the two of them, so they have to like go out and do things together, and that friendship turns into something more. And this book just had me laughing the entire time I read it. It was just so good, and it was so funny and so nuanced, and it was like delightful. And yeah, this was such a good book, and it has such a special place in my heart.
Next one for me is called Honor by Jay Crownover. I love this book. It is an adult book. It is a sexy adult book. So keep that in mind. This is such a good mix of sexy, funny, romantic, down to earth. Basically, you have Honor, or Keelan, who is an exotic dancer. And then you have Nasir. And Nasir is a mafia mob. He's kind of the mafia boss, I believe, of, I think, a Russian gang or something like that. Either way, he's the boss of a mob, a gang, whoever, and way back when, like a year or two ago, there was a run-in with Keelan, and he wanted to get to know her and get her to fall for him, only she ran away before that could happen. And finally, he's come across her again. He has hunted her down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not in a creepy way, but in like a, I want, like, this feels real.
Yeah.
I know that we're meant to be kind of thing. Alright, kind of in a creepy way, but it gets better, I promise. And so the whole story is them kind of getting to know each other, Nasir being confident that Keelan is the one for him, kind of having to show Keelan his softer side because he is the mob boss. And so there's so much that ensues from there. It is fantastic. It had me grinning, blushing, laughing. I really love this book. I think this is, out of all of the adult romances I've ever read, this by far is the best.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, so this is like
stamp
number
of
one.
approval there.
This is a huge stamp of approval. You should read it.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't take much convincing. Okay, so the next book that I want to chat about is one that I don't have right now because my sister snatched it from my grubby little hands and has not returned it. But that is From Blood and Ash by JLA, our girl Jennifer L. Armentrout, and you have to read this. Basically, this video is just us giving each other book recommendations. So
yeah, basically.
So this book has taken the booktube community by storm. And essentially, if you haven't heard what this is about, I've talked about it, I think, in 2 videos recently, so you're probably like, we already know. But we're following a girl named Poppy, who is the maiden. Forgot what it was called. She is the maiden, and she basically, in her job in society, is to basically remain unpure, untouched. She can't have friends, like no lovers, so she's basically just like really lonely all the time. And her job is to help ascend the rest of her people, but we don't know what that means, and it's kept very vague on purpose. Poppy's really not sure what it means. So the first opening scene is she decides that she's gonna live a little because YOLO. So she sneaks out of her castle and she goes to a brothel. Because she wants to like play cards with people, she wants to interact with people, she wants to have a first kiss and things like that. And that's where she runs into the very handsome and mysterious Hawk, who happens to be a palace guard. And something ensues there, and then
I wonder
some things happen. And then eventually, she's in disguise, so he doesn't know who she is. But eventually he becomes her personal guard, because he's like the creme de la creme of like stabbing people and shit. So he becomes kind of like her personal protector, and obviously things are going to ensue from there. But it's got paranormal elements to it. It's got a really interesting political aspect to it. It's kind of the idea of like truth and like brainwashing people, and it's just such a fun book. It's like 600 pages, but damned if I didn't read that entire thing in 24 hours. I was obsessed. And so, if you're a fan of Jennifer L. Armentrout and you like some of her other books, which, yes, we do. We are JLA stans here. You have to pick it up. It's just a must. And the third book is coming out in April, and I think the fourth book is coming out by the end of the year. So she's just like whipping these babies out. So can't wait. And every time I think about Hawk and Poppy, I get like giddy and smiley. They're just so fantastic.
You keep telling me to read it, and I keep telling you that I'm gonna wait until like at least the third, maybe even the fourth book comes out, because then if I read it now, then I'm gonna be like you, where I'm like,
but
God,
it's like anticipation makes it so much sweeter.
I've been anticipating Cressley Cole's last book for a while now. It's turned sour.
That's fair. That's fair.
The next one on my list, I will go ahead and throw right up here because I don't have it physically in front of me. It is the Vampire Kisses series by Ellen Schreiber. This is just such a cute, happy read. I read this around the same age I was when I read the Hush Hush series. It's very adorable. I don't know my list. Raven and Alexander. Okay. So it's another YA paranormal romance. You have Raven, who's just living her life. She's in high school, and then she meets Alexander. And she, like, absolutely falls in love with Alexander. And Alexander is falling in love with her. But there's something a little suspicious about Alexander.
He's a little sus, yeah.
Yes, he's a little sus. It's not a spoiler to say that he's a vampire, because it is in the title. It's Vampire Kisses. You know what you're gonna get with it. If you have ever read or watched the Vampire Diaries series, it's along the same concept where it's like human girl, vampire guy, they're in high school together, girl finds out. Or girl tries to find out? Does girl find? Yeah, okay. Girl finds out. What does she do? Do they stay together? What about all these other things that are going to come across their path? Oh no! So, it's just super adorable, super young.
I remember these books. I think I read the first one, but that was like forever ago.
Well, it was you should read it.
Re-up it.
Yeah, you gotta re-up it. Reread the series. They also have a manga, which is super cute. I think it's adorable. All of mine seem to be paranormal romances, apparently.
That's your thing.
I guess I just don't want to be a human. Last, but most certainly not least, is my own shout out to Jennifer L. Armentrout. It is the Dark Elements series. The first book I have here is White Hot Kiss. I actually believe it's more of a trilogy, not an actual series. Again, it's a paranormal. Again, it's a series or trilogy. I just eat them up.
That's your
thing.
I
don't know. That's my thing. Basically, just real quick, you have a 17-year-old Layla. She is half gargoyle, half demon, and she lives with Zane, who has been her crush, but it's also kind of taboo because she has a more demonic side, and he's actually angelic. He's an angel, a gargoyle. What exactly is his?
Yeah, he's a gargoyle, but like gargoyles in this world, they're not like gross, like Hunchback of Notre Dame. So they're like almost seen as like the protectors, the angelic kind of.
Right, so it's like this weird gargoyle angel mix, but either way, they're more of a positive more of a positive being. Meanwhile, the demon side of Layla is really kind of shunned a little bit, so they're really just best friends for now. Layla has a huge crush on him. They're really not allowed to mix, so she has to be okay with that. And then she meets Roth. Roth is 100% demon, 100% hot.
Pretty much.
And so he goes on these little adventures where he's not really making Layla do bad things, but he's kind of showing Layla to embrace her side of the demonic and gargoyle, as opposed to shunning it like the rest of the gargoyles at Zane's house do. A love triangle ensues from there. A lot of stuff ensues from there. I really try not to spoil these things. The trilogy is really just Layla defeating demons, defeating evil, figuring out whether to go with Zane or Roth. I just love it so much. I've already said this in one of the very first videos we made. This has my favorite quote of all time, spoken by Roth to Layla, and he says, "I lost myself the moment I found you," and it is just so sweet, and I love it so much.
And sexy.
And sexy, yes. It is very sexy. It's a Jennifer L. Armentrout book. Of course it's going to be sexy.
Okay. So the last book series that I want to chat about is also by Kresley Cole, who wrote the Arcana Chronicles that Danielle talked about earlier, and it is the Immortals After Dark series. And these books are just smut, essentially. They are paranormal smut. Like, there is hardly any other substance to them. But that's okay, because I'm not here for a good story. I'm here for
a good time.
For a good time, yes. So, essentially, in the first book, we're following a girl who is she's half vampire, half Valkyrie. And she is very weak within her, like, society because she's only half vampire or half Valkyrie, so she doesn't have the strongest traits of either. So she decides that she's gonna, like, go off and explore Paris and, like, do her thing. And while she's there, a mysterious large man, like half naked, comes, like, running after her and, like, kidnaps her, essentially. And
you told me this was good.
There.
They are kidding.
No, they're very good. They're very good because the first book was written in, like, 2004, so it's, like, a little cringe, a little out of date, but it's not that bad. And then she's still writing today, the series, and so it just gets better and better, and you follow, like, witches and vampires and demons and Valkyries and werewolves and succubi and, like, all these different creatures, and so cool. It's just they do build off of each other, so you do have to read one before you read the other, because there is an overarching theme of I believe it's called the Ascension or Accession or something like that, is happening, which is basically, like, every 500 years there's a war between, like, the good paranormal people and the bad paranormal people. And it's time for that war to happen. And so that's the kind of arching plot for the entire series. So they're kind of taking sides, they're forming alliances and things like that. So it's such a good time. They're all short reads. They're all on my Nook. I don't have any physical copies of these because I don't want to be seen with them. If my mom found them, she'd be like, "What gives?" So they are very smutty, but very, very good, and, you know, they're a fun time. So
good. Well, we better stop here before we go off on a tangent of all of the paranormal romances that we enjoy. Thank you for tuning in. If there are any romances that you really, really love, make sure to tell us in the comments, and we will absolutely check them out. Stay tuned for more videos, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.